Hello and welcome back to another video. Today's topic comes from CUSFacts.com. CUS is short for the Concordia University System. This is the university system of the LCMS, or Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is considered to be a bit more conservative than the ELCA, but they are less conservative than the WELS, or Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. I'm covering this because there's multiple allegations of abuses of different kinds. There's financial, there's sexual, there's criminal misconduct, but there's also, as well as the buying and selling of campuses, of property, of land, and financial or allegations of financial misconduct going on. Before I continue, if you have anything you would like to share, if you have comments, if you have stories, if you attended one of the Concordia universities, please reach out to the person who is working on having the most accurate and up-to-date information possible here at admin@cusfacts.com. To begin with, let's start with the introduction. 3 small private colleges, all with the same parent organization, have closed since 2018. Who made the decisions to close? The boards of regents at Concordia College, Alabama, Concordia University, Portland, and Concordia College, New York, voted in 2018, 2020, and 2021, respectively, to cease operations. While enrollment issues and debt plagued all 3 institutions, administrators within the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod (LCMS) and its in-house lender, the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, orchestrated the closures. The pages on this website show how. Side note, the Lutheran Church Extension Fund has also benefited the WELS denomination as well. Continuing on, the LCMS faces declining membership and a perilous financial outlook, and its leaders believe the church is at a critical juncture where it can either retrench or succumb to a prevailing secular culture. LCMS universities, which together make up the Concordia University System (CUS), carry substantial assets and are perceived within the church to be a vital place for nurturing young Lutherans. They therefore figure prominently in LCMS leadership's vision for restoring the church to financial, demographic, and spiritual health. This website draws heavily from reporting by journalists in Portland, Selma, the Twin Cities, nationally, and stitches their work together with original video and documentary analysis to uncover the drive by LCMS leadership to consolidate and control the institutions of the Concordia University System. It names and describes the network of nonprofit administrators, financial professionals, attorneys, and clergymen who have taken advantage of nonprofit exemptions and religious liberty protections to shut down the schools and liquidate their assets to fund other church entities. It also hopes to respond to ongoing events within the Concordia University system. Concordia University Portland is a defendant alongside the CUS, the Synod, and the Extension Fund in a lawsuit going to trial in 2023. The former campuses of Concordia University Portland and Concordia College New York are sold for a combined $100 million. Most recently, the Synod announced plans to dissolve the CUS entirely and replace it with a new commission on university education. This website will adapt to events accordingly. Next up, what is the LCMS? The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is a Lutheran denomination of Christianity which traces its origins to a group of Saxon Lutherans who emigrated from Germany in 1838 over complaints of state-forced ecclesiastical union with other Protestant denominations. This group formed an Auswanderungsgesellschaft, parentheses, quote, Immigration Society, end quote, in parentheses, sailed to New Orleans and settled in Perry County, Missouri, about 100 miles south of current LCMS headquarters in St. Louis. Side note, I apologize for my probable mispronunciation of the German word for Immigration Society. Continuing on, the LCMS was formally established in Chicago in 1847. Over the course of the next century and a half, it established congregations, seminaries, schools, and missions across the United States and abroad. Below that, we see an image showing a historical marker for Altenburg. And the caption beneath that photo reads, Historic Marker at the Lutheran Heritage Center and Museum in Altenburg in Perry County, Missouri. Continuing on. Today, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod claims nearly 2 million members, making it the second largest Lutheran church in the United States. Its membership has steadily fallen since the 1970s, however, prompting questions about the church's future. The LCMS commissioned University of Alabama researcher George Hawley to study this decline. His report, published in December of 2016, laid emphasis on, quote, low fertility among, parentheses, LCMS, and parentheses, adherents, end quote, in the context of overall decline in, quote, religious identification and observance, end quote, in the United States. Below that, we have a link for that particular journal. Continuing on, LCMS officials now routinely cite Hawley's report to back up their demographic explanation for declining membership in the church. LCMS President Matt Harrison spoke about the report at some length in a speech he gave in 2018. Video linked below. Side note, there is a footnote section with links for the above discussed reports. Next up, what is the CUS? The Concordia University System, also known as CUS, is a consortium of colleges and universities overseen by the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The CUS was founded in 1992 and originally included 10 member institutions, many of which started decades earlier as academies to train pastors and parochial school instructors for the LCMS. There has been a wave of closures and consolidations within the CUS in the last decade. Concordia University Ann Arbor merged with Concordia University Wisconsin in 2013. In 2018, Concordia College Alabama closed and the campus was sold. Then Concordia University Portland closed in 2020, and in 2021, Concordia College New York closed and sold its campus to Iona College. Parentheses, Portland's is still for sale, end parentheses. The member universities still operating are Concordia University Irvine, Concordia University Nebraska, Concordia University Texas, Concordia University Chicago, Concordia University Wisconsin, and Concordia University St. Paul. Below that, we have an image showing a map of the U.S. and each of the Concordia University locations. Continuing on, the CUS is a registered nonprofit corporation and ostensibly governed by an independent board of directors, separate from any outside entity. However, according to CUS Articles of Incorporation filed with the Missouri Secretary of State, it is, quote, a component part of the denomination the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and as such is subject to the Constitution of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, end quote. Its board of directors is elected by, quote, communicant members of member congregations of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, end quote. If the CUS is ever shut down, quote, all, parentheses, remaining, end parentheses, assets shall be transferred, conveyed, and distributed, end quote, to the Synod. In March of 2021, the LCMS announced a plan to disband the Concordia University system and replace it with a new, quote, Kingdom of the Right, end quote, a proposed commission on university education. As with previous sections, we have footnotes here at the bottom. With At the bottom of the footnotes, a start section. On October 4th, 2021, Concordia College, New York filed its petition with Westchester County Supreme Court to sell its campus to Iona College for $30 million. Concordia President John Nunes signed the petition. In response, 27 former faculty and staff members of Concordia, New York, filed an objection to the sale and asked the court to schedule an evidentiary hearing to determine its fair market value. The court is still considering their objection. So we talked about the Concordia University system and the LCMS, but what is the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, really? Well, let's go to what is the LCEF section. The Lutheran Church Extension Fund is an investment fund serving the broader Lutheran Church Missouri Synod community. Members of LCMS congregations can purchase notes issued by the LCEF, which mature after a fixed period. The LCEF lends the money raised to various sub-entities in the church, like congregations, schools, and rostered church workers, at interest. As borrowers pay back the loans and the notes mature, money flows back to investors who wish to redeem their notes. According to financial statements released in October of 2020, the LCEF has over $2 billion in assets, most in the form of loans receivable, money the fund expects to get back from borrowers it lent to. About half of this amount, over $1 billion, is owed by LCMS congregations. In 2020, the LCEF downgraded $225 million in congregational debt from its highest, quote, pass, unquote, category to, quote, special mention, unquote, which it assigns to, quote, loans where the borrower exhibits trends that, if left uncorrected, may threaten their capacity to perform, unquote. The fund also carries $1.6 billion in notes payable, money it owes individual LCMS members who have invested in the fund. Institutions of higher education owe $122 million to the LCEF. Concordia University Portland is the largest of these borrowers, with $37 million in, quote, impaired, end quote, loans. In 2019, all higher ed debt received the LCEF's highest investment grade, quote, pass, unquote, meaning it, quote, reflects acceptable risk, end quote. The LCEF is a registered 501c3 nonprofit religious organization, meaning investments in the fund, parentheses, the notes purchased, end parentheses, are not FDIC insured. Here below, we have more footnotes. We have a university system that may or may not be crumbling, and the religion that is backing it that may or may not be crumbling, and the Church Extension Fund, which may or may not be scamming its investors because, again, it's not FDIC insured, and there's no regulations to actually enforce it being insured, and any money that is being put into it isn't necessarily the money that is going to be given back to them or possibly appropriated to other projects. Up until court determines otherwise, a lot of the concerns are very real, and they're also alleged at this point. But first up, we have Concordia College, Alabama. Here we have a picture that shows Concordia College, established in 1922. There are 5 sections. The first one is divestiture/independence. The second one is closure. The third one is campus sale. The fourth one is 2019 LCMS convention. And the fifth one has the footnotes for all the sections. First up, we have divestiture/independence. In August 2015, the Concordia College, Alabama Board of Regents received a request from the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod Board of Directors to, quote, divest Concordia College, Alabama from the Synod, end quote. CCA's Board of Regents proposed terms for divestiture at the LCMS convention in 2016, but rather than receive a vote, the matter was reassigned to the LCMS Board of Directors for further study. In the intervening months, the LCMS Board of Directors appeared to have made other plans for CCA. At a meeting in February of 2016, the LCMS Board of Directors gave itself, quote, sole discretion, unquote, over the distribution of $2.3 million to CCA, which hinged on CCA developing, quote, a detailed closure and teach-out contingency plan, unquote, and meeting other financial reporting benchmarks. 4 months later, on June 30th, the LCMS added 14 requirements for CCA to qualify for the July 15th $1.5 million disbursement, and finally determined on July 28th that CCA was not eligible to receive the promised funding. Despite the financial crunch that ensued, LCMS legal counsel prohibited CCA from soliciting outside help. Below that, we have a Vimeo clip, linked here. According to its last president, CCA was looking for potential investors up until days before it decided to close, but a deal never materialized. Section: Closure. On February 21st, 2018, Concordia College, Alabama announced that it would close at the end of the spring semester. Officially, CCA's Board of Regents made the decision to close, which made the closure compliant with the LCMS bylaws in effect at the time, parentheses, before they were modified at the 2019 LCMS convention, end parentheses. However, members of the CCA Board of Regents denied that they voted to close the college. Below here, we have linked the July 24th, 2019 afternoon session. Note that each of the video clips that are linked here, they have notes saying relevant clips runs from this time frame to this time frame. Continuing on. Less than 6 years earlier, LCMS and Concordia University system officials helped broker an agreement that kept Concordia University Ann Arbor from closing. LCMS President Matthew Harrison spoke about this event and CCA in a speech in 2018. Linked here below. Section: Campus Sale. The sale of CCA's assets began on November 30th, 2018. On January 3rd, 2019, the campus was sold to Dr. Paul J. Kim, a minister who has hosted revival assemblies in Korea, the United States, and other countries around the world since at least 1997. Below that, we have linked here a video on Dr. Paul J. Kim's history. Continuing on, CCA's campus is now the site of International Mission Jesus, an Alabama nonprofit corporation Dr. Kim founded in December 2018. Section: 2019 LCMS Convention. At the 2019 LCMS Convention, the Committee on University Education proposed a resolution, quote, to recognize and give thanks for work at Selma, end quote. In the ensuing debate, representatives of CCA and delegates to the convention challenged the assertions in the resolution, drawing responses and rebuke from CUS President Dean Wenth and LCMS President Matthew Harrison. Linked here below. A final vote on Resolution 7-05A passed on second attempt after Committee 7 removed most of its assertions and President Matthew Harrison rushed through another round of debate. Again, linked here below. And we have footnotes. Of note here, out of the 24 different footnotes we have here, number 23 is the 2019 LCMS Convention, 6th edition. And the author notes that should be compared to original unamended version of Resolution 7-05. All right, so it sounds like the LCMS decided that they were going to change some terms around, so perhaps it would be easier to sell off colleges that they see as closing. Or maybe there's more financial more financial mismanagement going on. Again, the author does a really good job of providing sources and links. So please read all of this and go through each of the links yourself. I think that if the Concordia University College in Alabama had been the only one to close, there wouldn't be as much pressure or as much focus on the outside looking in. But let's go over to Concordia University, Portland. Here below the title, we have an image showing a photo of the campus, and this has six sections. The first one is Hot Chalk Incorporated. The second one is Queer Straight Alliance. The third one is Presidential Succession. The fourth one is The Squeeze. The fifth one is Closure and Fallout. And the sixth one is Footnotes. First up, Hot Chalk Incorporated. Concordia University, Portland hired Hot Chalk in 2009 to build an online Master of Education program, and within several years became one of the nation's largest providers of Masters of Education. Graduate student enrollment at CUP increased from 800 students in 2009 to over 6,000 in 2014. Over 5,200 were exclusively enrolled in online courses. That same year, CUP paid Hot Chalk $62.7 million for, quote, recruitment services, end quote, on $173.2 million in total revenue. Below that, we have an infographic of student enrollment at CUP from 2012 to 2018. The comparison is between all students enrolled and graduate students enrolled exclusively in distance education courses. Continuing on, in 2015, federal prosecutors accused CUP and Hot Chalk of student recruitment violations and substantially misrepresenting their online programs. The complaint alleged that Hot Chalk instructed its recruiters to offer prospective students iPads, textbooks, and limited availability, quote, scholarships, end quote, and was paid 75% of tuition for each student it enrolled at CUP. An investigation by the Oregonian found numerous people who claimed to work for CUP and Hot Chalk simultaneously. CUP and Hot Chalk agreed to pay $1 million to settle the claims, but admitted no wrongdoing, and their business relationship was allowed to continue. Enrollment in the Masters of Education program quickly dropped from its peak in 2014 to 2015, but then stabilized. At the time of its closure in 2020, interim president Tom Rees said CUP's total enrollment was about 5,400 students. Side note, even with its unethical alliance with Hot Chalk and bringing students into their Master's of Education program, you wouldn't think that that would necessarily cause the university to close, especially in 2020, because even with coronavirus, they have a distance learning program in place, and it's stabilized, and it was bringing them revenue. So why would the LCMS close it? Moving on to the next section, Queer Straight Alliance. Ernesto Dominguez founded the Queer Straight Alliance as a student at CUP in 2014. Students reported CUP administrators canceled QSA events, tore down its posters, and pressured the club to change its name. A 2017 CUP Title IX review concluded that, quote, the university was in violation of the student non-discrimination policy, specifically in relation the sick end parentheses, Pride Club representing our LGBTQ students, end quote. In the months following, QSA and CUP administrators could not agree on acceptable charter language, and the QSA announced it would shut down. CUP then reversed its stance and said it would approve the QSA charter, quote, as proposed, end quote. CUP also opened an Gender and Sexuality Research Center in March of 2018 and committed to a series of gender a series of sex and gender discrimination trainings. Lutheran Church Missouri Synod President Matthew Harrison told his own account these events in a speech in 2018, linked here below. Section: Presidential Succession. In July of 2018, after serving 35 years as president of CUP, Charles Schlimpert retired and was succeeded by Johnny Driesner as interim president. The CUP Board of Regents launched a national search for a permanent successor. President Schlimpert had originally planned to retire in the summer of 2017, but agreed to extend his tenure after the LCMS asked CUP to consider spinning off as an independent university. In December 2018, the CUP Presidential Search Committee published a list of 25 candidates who had accepted nominations to serve as CUP's permanent president. At this point, per LCMS bylaws then in effect, with a star next to it, CUP's Board of Regents would have submitted a, quote, shortlist, end quote, of candidates to the president of the Concordia University system, who would have then convened a, quote, prior approval panel, end quote, to give final authorization on the candidates. Months passed, however, and CUP did not get another permanent president. On multiple occasions, senior LCMS and CUS administrators spoke candidly about preventing a permanent appointment at CUP until it got its Lutheran identity statement in line with the Lutheran identity standards adopted at the 2016 LCMS convention. Side note, those Lutheran identity standards, that was something that I briefly covered in my video on the Concordia, Wisconsin and Concordia, Ann Arbor situation, which will be linked below. Below that section, we have another link to another video. Continuing on, when Johnny Driesner's 18-month term as interim president expired in January 2020, Tom Rees was named the next interim president. Section: The Squeeze. In 2019 and early 2020, the LCMS was applying and receiving pressure to shut down the Queer Straight Alliance at CUP. Below, we have linked another clip. At the same time, lower enrollment in online programs combined with the increasingly burdensome revenue-sharing terms in the hot chalk contract were putting the squeeze on CUP financially. It stopped offering degrees in history, English, and biology, but assured students and faculty that it was a part of a strategic reorientation around popular programs like nursing, business administration, and the Masters of Education. These issues all came to a head in November 2019, when at the same meeting in which it orchestrated a $9.2 million rescue of CUP, the LCMS Board of Directors said it would not again approve any financial assistance until CUP, quote, substantially addressed, end quote, the Gender and Sexuality Resource Center on campus. Section: Closure and Fallout. On February 10, 2020, 6 weeks after coming on as interim president, Tom Rees announced that CUP would close at the end of the spring semester. Before the end of the day on February 10th, a class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of students alleging that CUP collected spring semester tuition under false pretenses. Thousands of students could not complete their degrees, including many who had transferred to CUP following other private university closures in the region. Below, we have linked here an interview that is described as, quote, think out loud, end quote, interview with CUP student Lauren Harris and attorney Michael Fuller. Continuing on, 2 months later, Hot Chalk Incorporated sued CUP for $302 million, alleging fraud and claiming CUP recorded new property deeds giving the LCMS security interest in the campus days before February 10th. Side note, that is rich coming from Hot Chalk, which allegedly, according to the federal government, was okay with conducting fraud with CUP. Continuing on, in January 2021, a Multnomah County Circuit Court denied CUP's motion to surrender assets to the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, which had taken a $9.2 million position in CUP under the authorization of the LCMS Board of Directors at a November 2019 board meeting. Concordia University St. Paul absorbed CUP's Accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. Originally, it made an agreement to take, quote, ownership control, end quote, of the School of Law in Boise, too, but that deal fell apart in the summer of 2020. The Oregon Justice Department's Charitable Organizations Division has opened an investigation into the collapse of CUP, which is ongoing. In November 2020, online education company Noodle announced it had acquired, quote, key assets, end quote, of Hot Chalk, including its marketing agency, Creative Communication Associates. Hot Chalk CEO Rob Rubel joined Noodle as Chief Marketing Officer. On June 29, 2021, the Lutheran Church Extension Fund bought the CUP campus at auction for $3 million. One day before, the University of Idaho College of Law announced it would take over the lease of CUP's former law school campus in Boise, which the LCEF acquired with a $4.1 million credit bid in March of 2021. The deal pays the LCEF $600,000 annually, going up every 5 years, with the option to buy. On March 14th, the University of Oregon Board of Trustees voted to purchase the former campus of Concordia University, Portland, for $60.5 million. According to UO officials, the campus will host the Balmer Institute in the University of Oregon, Portland. Next up, we have footnotes. Remember that star from before? Here we go. Here's the information for that star. This process was later altered by 2019 Resolution 7-0A4, which, quote, advanced, end quote, the prior approval process and gave the LCMS Board of Directors control over who got on the list of nominees before congregations could see who had been. Just as a reminder, this was regarding accepting nominations to serve as the school's permanent president. Is 2 colleges down. Next up, we have Concordia College, New York. This has 5 sections. First one being closure and sale to Iona College. Second, faculty and staff objection to sale. Third, LCEF mortgage agreements. Fourth, property sales. And last, but certainly not least, number 5, footnotes. First section, closure and sale to Iona College. On January 28, 2021, Concordia College, New York, parentheses, CCNY, in parentheses, announced that it would close at the end of the summer term and sell its Bronxville campus to Iona College, making it the 3rd Concordia to close since 2019. Side note, coincidentally, the 3rd Concordia to close since 2019. That is within just 2 years, 3 universities down. Continuing on. In a joint statement, Iona said it would use Concordia's campus to develop its health sciences programs. Several months later, in July of 2021, Iona announced a $20 million gift from New York Presbyterian Hospital to establish the New York Presbyterian Iona School of Health Sciences on the former Concordia campus. Next up, faculty and staff objection to sale section. On October 4th, 2021, CCNY submitted to the Westchester County Supreme Court a petition to sell its main campus to Iona for $30 million. According to the petition, most of the proceeds from the sale would go to paying off CCNY's debt to the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, parentheses LCEF, end parentheses, which exceeds $25 million. The petition identified the LCEF as CCNY's, quote, only significant secured creditor, end quote, saying its outstanding loans were, quote, secured by first mortgage liens recorded in the Westchester County Clerk's office against the petitioner's campus real estate, end quote. On October 20th, 2021, 2 weeks after Concordia filed its petition to sell its campus to Iona, 27 former faculty and staff members filed an objection with the court seeking to hold up the sale. They claimed the $30 million sale price was artificially low and asked the court to schedule an evidentiary hearing to determine its fair market value. On November 5th, a Westchester County Supreme Court judge approved the sale, but ordered Concordia to set aside $3 million to settle the claims of former faculty and staff. Next section, LCEF mortgage agreements. CCNY and the LCEF signed a series of mortgage agreements between 2006 and 2020. In each agreement, CCNY posted as collateral different combinations of its main campus properties at 171, 182, 187, and 193 White Plains Road in order to get financing from the LCEF. CCNY continued to sign mortgage agreements with the LCEF in 2021, after the school announced it would close and sell its campus to Iona. All of these agreements added additional layers of LCEF security over CCNY's main campus property and extended the LCEF secured interest to additional properties that weren't included in the pre-2021 mortgages. On February 23, 2021, CCNY President John Dunne signed a $2.95 million mortgage with the LCEF, which in exchange gave the LCEF a secured interest in 15 properties on and off campus. This mortgage covered the four main campus properties, parentheses, at 171, 182, 187, and 193 White Plains Road, end parentheses, as well as 11 additional properties that don't appear in any prior agreements. On the same day, Nunes signed 4 mortgage modification agreements, which, quote, spread, end quote, prior mortgages from 2014, 2017, 2018, and 2019 over the same 15 on and off campus properties. CCNY did not receive anything in consideration for spreading these mortgages over its additional properties. The properties newly covered in the 2021 mortgage agreements are a combination of land, athletic fields, and off-campus housing. All of these properties have since been sold, are under contract, or are included in the proposed campus sale to Iona as outlined in CCNY's petition to the Westchester County Supreme Court. Below that, we see a municipal tax parcel viewer for those site properties. The caption for the photo reads, "Properties owned and sold, parentheses, are under contract, and parentheses, by Concordia College, New York, as of 2021. Next section, property. CCNY originally stated that it would sell its campus to Iona at the end of 2021 summer term. However, it did not submit its petition to sell the main campus property until October 4th, and Iona finally announced its acquisition on December 7th. CCNY did manage to sell up several off-campus houses in August and September of 2021. New York state law says that nonprofit organizations can execute smaller transactions like this without prior review by the Attorney General or New York State Supreme Court. On August 31st, CCNY sold 3 houses at 16 Hobart Street, 225 White Plains Road, and 230 White Plains Road to 3 different LLCs for a combined $2 million. 2 weeks later, on September 16th, it sold another house at 205 White Plains Road to a 4th LLC for $999,000, narrowly avoiding the, quote, mansion tax, end quote, New York State imposes on real estate purchases over $1 million. The LLCs which bought these 4 houses all list the same address on the sale deeds, and filings with the New York Secretary of State suggest all 4 LLCs are run by Gregory Holcomb, whose children attended the Chapel School on CCNY's campus years ago. Below that, we see an image of an article screenshot here. The caption for the article reads, "A Bronxville Review Press article from 2003 recognized Greg Holcomb's work with the Chapel School." Continuing on, Another home at 214 Midland Avenue in Tuckahoe sold on September 29th for $500,000 to an individual named Lyden Zekaj. Zekaj works for Batska Consulting Group, a construction services firm that lists among its clients New York Presbyterian Lawrence Hospital in Bronxville, as well as other New York Presbyterian hospitals in New York City. The property next door at 212 Midland Avenue is also under contract for $495,000. Last but not least, we have all of the footnotes. 15 in total. So that's 3 Concordia universities that have closed, and the amount of fraud or alleged fraud and the legal cases that have been generated are very interesting. You would think with them being concerned as being seen as a Lutheran organization, they would try to handle financial matters with more grace. However, more remains to be seen, and more facts remain to be revealed. Next up, we have Tom Rees and Concordia University, St. Paul. There are 4 sections, the first one being tenure at CSP and retirement. The second one is CSP fourplex. The third one is Central Midway Building. And the fourth one is footnotes. First up, section, tenure at CSP and retirement. Before serving as interim president of Concordia University, Portland in 2020, Reverend Dr. Tom Rees was the president of Concordia University, St. Paul from 2011 until his retirement in 2019. He received many awards and tributes at the end of his tenure. CSP renamed a building as Rees Tower in his honor, and official releases from CSP and the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod celebrated the, quote, tremendous growth in CSP's enrollment, program offerings, student retention rates, and campus facilities, end quote, that occurred under his watch alongside a $10,000 tuition, quote, reset, end quote, in 2013. The Association of Lutheran Development Executives awarded him the 2019 Aldi Outstanding Executive Director Award. Next section, CSP fourplex. Dr. Rees was subject to some scrutiny in 2018 when Pioneer Press revealed that CSP had sold a fourplex apartment building to his wife while he was president. Dr. Rees corresponded with tenants living in the building from his CSP email account as the, quote, treasurer, end quote, for Susie Rees Interiors, Incorporated. The property was sold in March 2021 for $1.17 million, more than 3 times what Susie Rees Interiors paid CSP in 2016. Below that, we see an image of the fourplex with a caption, 1287 Dayton Avenue, near the campus of Concordia University, St. Paul. Next section, Central Midway Building. In late 2018, CSP reached an agreement to purchase a large office building near campus where it had leased office and classroom space since 2015. Officials said the building acquisition would allow it, quote, to expand academic programs including business and health science, end quote. The St. Paul City Council raised concerns about the acquisition. The property sits near a newly opened light rail line with lots of new development. And as a nonprofit organization exempt from paying property tax, CSP's ownership removed the property from the city's tax rolls. Dr. Rees appeared before the council to defend the acquisition, but the council's opposition continued, and CSP ultimately withdrew its request to the city for financing. CSP raised the money nevertheless and bought the property on March 19, 2019. 1 month later, at Rees's retirement party, it was renamed as Rees Tower. In 2020, after Concordia University Portland closed, it announced that its accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing program would move to CSP. CSP also reached an agreement to buy Concordia Portland's law school in Boise, Idaho, but that deal fell through. Below that, we have an image of that tower that was renamed to Rees Tower, with a caption, 393 North Dunlap Street, formerly known as the Central Midway Building before it was renamed Reese Tower in St. Paul, Minnesota. Below that, we have our section of footnotes. Thank you for listening to my transcription of the overview and the facts for the 3 Concordia universities being closed, as well as some suspicious coincidental appearances and timing by one Tom Reese. If you want updates for what is currently going on in the litigation world and being reported on for the different trials that are going on for the different universities, it's under here in the update section, with the most recent being at the top and the least recent being at the bottom. There is also a handy timeline here that goes through in a very well abbreviated session, in my opinion, from earliest to most recent, the basic facts in a well condensed timeline. Easy to read, easy to go through. Thank you all for watching/listening, and I will see you.
Seeds of hope, they still grow. Sheets of white over rock.